Hi, could you tell me your name and what organization are you representing?
Well, my name is Professor Murari. I am a professor of climate change and director for the Pacific Center of Environment and Sustainable Development at the University of South Pacific in Suva, Fiji.
And why are you here at COP16?
I am here representing the Fiji government delegation as their advisor.
Okay, and what is at stake for the South Pacific Islands?
Well, we know that the way the climate change threat is accelerating with the warming which is continuing, with the greenhouse gas emissions which have continued to grow in spite of the beyond the highest projections of the SRES scenario given by IPCC, in spite of the Kyoto Protocol, and it has made the island countries very vulnerable. Most of the island countries, they are facing water shortages at some locations. Some locations, the major coastal erosion is taking place. Apart from that, the saltwater intrusion has affected the coastal vegetation and the coral reefs, they are dying. So as a result, the fisheries productivity has also been decreasing. Now the thing is, we were expecting a lot in the Copenhagen summit when the target was suggested to be set at 1.5 degree. However, even the 2-degree target, it was not agreed to in a legally binding commitment by the 193 countries which represented the Copenhagen. Now we expect that at Cancun, some progress will be made into that. And apart from that, what we expect is that as the island countries are going to be most vulnerable to the climate change, which is already committed, and the threats are visible now in terms of the lower productivity of the fisheries, the food crops productivity has also declined, there are water shortages, and the communities who are living, most of the island communities, they are living along the coastline. So their livelihood is at stake. And that's where, what we are trying to do is we are trying to create awareness among the communities as well as groom the youths who are coming for tertiary education at the postgraduate level to know about the climate change science and some of the approaches that they need to understand how to adapt to climate change. Because ultimately it looks like, that adaptation is a must for Pacific Island countries. Without that, the communities will be at risk. And that's where the government as well as the educated youth has a lot to do in order to protect its communities.
And do you have any actions at the South Pacific Islands to fight climate change or to adapt to climate change?
Yeah, in fact, the university is getting support from Australian government in several ways, like we are enhancing our own university's capacity building in terms of the educated manpower who are trained and familiar with the issues of climate change, so they can groom the youths, in terms of how to manage the risk, how to manage the disasters, and then along with that, tell them something about the science, so that they know, where the science is heading us to, and what could be done. And simultaneously, we are also doing adaptation activities. We are going to the communities with the funding support received from Australian government. We are asking them about the difficulties, the threats which are new to them, which they have not had in their past history, and then try to tell them how to adapt to it. So we do adaptation work like protecting their coastal barriers, protecting their water resources, providing them adequate fresh water resources for their day-to-day activities through generating boreholes or providing some infrastructure. Now this adaptation activity we are doing in partnership with communities, so that during the process of the project activity, they get trained also in how to manage even after we have moved out of that community. Because what is important is that you generate a resource. Now they have to manage it and they have to maintain it. Simultaneously, they also have to monitor it regularly and evaluate that what is going to be the sustainability of the options that we have proposed or we have implemented. Because ultimately this will help us also that whether these are the adequate solutions or we need to devise other techniques, technical approaches which will sustain their livelihood for a longer period. So these are some of the soft options we have initiated over the last 4 years. Now we are going to continue in other communities, and we are also expecting some support from the European Union in order to take such actions in as many as 15 island countries in the region. And that we are going to implement very soon, probably early next year, to do the similar activity in other island countries. In addition to our activity, through JEF funding, Pacific Adaptation to Climate Change program is already underway. And we would like to complement, not duplicate, the activities being done by the countries under the JEF support for these activities, so that we approach the communities and give them the adequate awareness to manage the risk of the climate change in coming years and decades.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to add anything else?
Well, what we expect from Cancun is that we should not go empty-handed here. We should have a legally binding commitment to start with at whatever level the countries accept. But there have to be an agreement on a legally binding commitment so that the post-Kyoto continuity is there. Apart from that, what we expect now, some of the countries are becoming very vulnerable, particularly the island countries. So what we expect is that the funding support for adaptation, it has to come at a faster pace. And for that, what we expect, that they will be able to, there are some problems with the support at the moment, like there are now billions which have been pledged, and they have to be met in order to enable the poorers around the world, and particularly in the island countries, to manage the risk. And for that, what we expect is that the climate finance, it must be adequate, predictable and appropriate. Then the climate funds must be fairly governed, and the old coordination problems between funding nations need to be resolved as well. And ultimately, it will be the accountability and independent evaluation which will be very critical in order to see how these adaptation funds are provided and how they are being used for the benefit of the communities and the societies.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.